Geronimo by Shepherd. As always, you're listening to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. I am White Shadow, and today is the 22nd of July, I think. Let's go with that. Now, Jade is not here today because Jade is taking part in the Busk in London competition, which takes place all week in various locations. Yesterday she was at Wembley Park. Today she'll be at Westfields from 2 o'clock until 2:30, I believe. The winners are decided by a public vote, so please do consider popping by the website and dropping Jade a vote or two. The votes are going on all week this week, and you can vote once a day, every day. If you go to buskinlondon.com/gigs/find, you'll see a list of all the participants, and Jade will be there with a big shiny vote button for you to click. So go ahead, make her day, make my day. Click that votey button, vote for Jade. I'll repeat the details later in the show. Like I said, today is 22nd of July, which means that 10 years ago on this day, the number one song in the UK was Dance With Me by Dizzy Rascal, and 20 years ago on this day, the number one song was Deeper Underground by Jamiroquai here in the UK. Also, interestingly, 22nd of July 1963, the Beatles' first US album introducing the Beatles was pressed by VJ Records, who thought they had obtained the legal rights from Transglobal Records, and when it was finally released in January 1964, Capitol Records hit VJ with an injunction against manufacturing, distributing, advertising or otherwise disposing of records by the Beatles. After a trial, VJ was allowed to release any Beatles records they had masters of in any form until October the 15th, 1964, and after that time they no longer had the right to issue any Beatles products. That was more of an essay than I expected. NASA. Let's move on to NASA, because NASA is preparing to send a probe closer to the sun than any other spacecraft has ever ventured, in the form of the Parker Solar Probe. Now, the robotic spacecraft is the size of a small car and is due to launch from Cape Canaveral in Florida around the 6th of August-ish for a 7-year mission. Now, I wouldn't get overly excited because it's set to fly into the sun's corona within 3.8 million miles of the solar surface. But that's still about 7 times closer than any other spacecraft has ever ventured to the sun. The previous closest pass to the sun was by a probe called Helios 2 back in 1976, which came within 27 million miles. I mean, for the sake of comparison, the average distance from the sun to Earth is 93 million miles. The project, which is costing about $1.5 billion, is the first major mission under NASA's Living with a Star program. Now, check this out. I quote, "The probe is set to use 7 Venus flybys over nearly 7 years to steadily reduce its orbit around the sun using instruments designed to image the solar wind and study electric and magnetic fields, coronal plasma, and energetic particles." It's been outfitted with a heat shield designed to keep its instrument at a tolerable 85 degrees Fahrenheit or 29 degrees Celsius, even as the spacecraft faces temperatures reaching nearly 2,500 degrees. That's 1,370 degrees Celsius at its closest pass. On that note, I'm going to see if I can remember how to string a coherent sentence together. I'm going to throw on a few more tunes. Now, I have got 4 new tunes. Well, I say new tunes. I've got 4 old tunes that were not previously on the system. I've got them onto the system today, so I'm going to be playing them throughout the show. This one I've put on the system from last week's, when I uploaded my show to YouTube last week, Retro Stevie mentioned that he heard this song playing elsewhere and thought it was coming from Insanity, so I thought I'd throw it onto the system. So this time around, Retro Stevie, it is coming from Insanity Radio. Enjoy. It's The End of the World as We Know It by REM. Before that, we were listening to It Must Be Love by Madness. You're listening to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. I am White Shadow, and today is the 22nd of July. Now, a while back, I was having a conversation with somebody, and they said to me, what do you think it would be like if Microsoft built cars? What do you think a Microsoft car would be like? And I very, very quickly and easily responded with quite an... I said for no reason whatsoever, the car would crash twice a day. Every time they repaint the lines on the road, we'd have to upgrade or buy a new car. Occasionally, from making a simple move like a left turn, it would make the car shut down or refuse to start, making you reinstall the entire engine before you can carry on. Occasionally, for no reason whatsoever, your car would lock you out and refuse to let you in unless you simultaneously lift the door handle, turn the key, and hold on to the aerial. When you're buying a new car, you'd also be forced to buy a deluxe set of road maps, even though you don't need them or want them, and they'd be forced to remain in the car forever, no matter what. Every time they introduce a new model, owners would have to learn how to drive all over again because none of the controls would be in the same place as they were in the old car. You'd have to press the start button to turn it off. The wheels would come with a 30-day trial period. One day out of the blue, they'd just spontaneously lock, and you'd be greeted by a message, "Thank you for trialling our product. If you enjoy having wheels on your car, please sign up and buy them now at www. And finally, the most significant part of it all, of course, Macintosh would attempt to compete. Macintosh would be making their own car that's solar powered, reliable, 5 times faster, twice as easy to drive, but would only run on 5% of the roads. Moving on with a small disclaimer, thoughts and opinions are my own. Yes, in what is described as the biggest overhaul in its 110-year history, the Girlguiding UK has introduced 800 new badges and activities to reflect the diversity of girls and modern life in the 21st century. While generations of girl guides have historically earned patches for hostessing, operating radios and making cups of tea, the new programme is dishing those badges altogether. They'll be replaced with skills seen as more relevant to young women today. Over the last 18 months, more than 50,000 members of the guides put together the new programme, which includes 100 new badges and 700 new activities. There's going to be 6 new themes, and they're going to be called Express Myself, Be Well, Know Myself, Skills for My Future, Have Adventures and Take Action. The new scheme includes badges such as mixology, vlogging and human rights for guides. The youngest girl guiding group, the Rainbows, which is made up of 5 to 7-year-olds, are encouraged to earn badges in healthy minds and recycling. The Brownies from ages 7 to 10 will be picking up badges for zero waste, mindfulness, baking and archaeology. The oldest group, the Rangers, aging from 14 to 18, can study for badges in women's rights, festival goers and business. As part of the revamp, old badges such as hostess are being retired, but others, including Grow Your Own, Exploring Nature and First Aid, will remain. The new programme is being phased out over the next 12 months and will be fully rolled out by September 2019. And I already feel like I've been talking forever. This is where we need Jade on the show, because I've been talking for 4 minutes and I already feel like my throat is falling off, whereas Jade would be doing another 6 minutes easily and she'll be piping for more. I'm going to throw on a few more tunes. I have another song here that I've uploaded to the system. This one's going to be very unfamiliar to a lot of you, but anybody who's been a fan of The Mummy, the original, The Mummy, with Brendan Fraser, well, it's not the original, but Brendan Fraser starring, will remember this song. It's one of my favourites from that era. It's one of my favourites. Stick around to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. All Night Long by Lionel Richie. Before that, we were listening to Forever May Not Be Long Enough by Live. You're listening to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. I am White Shadow, and do not forget that if you have any song requests, you can tweet into the studio at Insanity Radio. Now, I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this because Jade isn't here today. So she can't speak on behalf of the masses when I say there's only 156 days left until Christmas. Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas. Ho, ho, ho. Just to think of all the sweets and chocolates that are going to be rolling our way once again. And speaking of chocolates, a reduced sugar version of the Cadbury Dairy Milk Bar will be going on sale next year. It's going to have 30% less sugar, and Cadbury has described it as the most significant innovation in the brand's history. The company is also planning reduced sugar versions of some of its other brands, such as Oreo and Bassett's Wine Gums and Jelly Babies. A survey by vouchercodes.com earlier this year suggested that on average, each person in the UK ate 22 dairy milk bars a year. In the new bar, the sugar content will be 39 grams per 100 grams, which is down from 56 per 100 grams in the traditional one, but the calorie content will be similar. We've been told it tastes very, very close to the original, but a little less sweet. It's been tested extensively on consumers, and they love it. The owner also said taking sugar out of our products isn't easy and will take time. Now, in May, research by the UK Heart Forum and Institute of Technology, Sligo, I can never pronounce that. They predicted that the number of morbidly obese people in England, Scotland and Wales is set to be double over the next 20 years. The study found that if current trend continues, nearly 5 million Brits will have a body mass index of above 40, up from 1.9 million in 2015. Last month, the government revealed a series of new proposals to tackle childhood obesity, including tougher restrictions on supermarkets displaying unhealthy foods at checkouts, banning the sales of energy drinks to children, and a 9 p.m. watershed for advertising unhealthy food on the TV. On a side note, the Toblerone bar is going to be returning to its original shape and original size only 2 years after it was made smaller to keep prices steady. But on the downside, or the upside, I'm not quite sure which, after speaking about obesity, it's going to be costing more than £3. The 170-gram version was shrunk back in 2016 to 150 grams, which prompted quite a significant public outcry. The company behind the Toblerone made the gap between the triangles bigger, which resulted in the design being compared to a bicycle rack. Now the bar is reportedly being made 33% bigger with a new size of 200 grams, but with a 200% price rise in the process. When the bar was made smaller in 2016, Glenn Caton, the president of the Northern Europe division, owner of the Cadbury brand, said the new shape was only a short-term solution, that it was not the right thing for long-term because of the iconic nature of the product. The decision would mean that Poundland would no longer be able to stock the bars, which are its most popular product. The company reportedly said it was bringing back a version of its own chocolate bar, its own version of the chocolate bar, Twin Peaks, in the coming months. So Toblerone is making a comeback. But maybe if the shape change was only going to be temporary, maybe they should have mentioned that 2 years ago when people started screaming and shouting about how much it had changed. But anyway, speaking of chocolate, Jade Thornton is taking part in a busk in London. Oh, what a segue. I couldn't do that better if I tried. It's Busk in London competition, which takes place all week this week at various locations around London. Yesterday she was at Wembley Park. Today she'll be at Westfields from 2 p.m. The winners are decided by public vote, so please do consider popping by the website and dropping Jade a vote. The votes are going to be on all week and you can vote once a day, every day. If you go to buskinlondon.com/gigs/find, you'll see a list of all the participants, and Jade will be there with a big shiny vote button for you to click, so go make her day. I'm going to throw in a few more tunes. Right now I have another one I have uploaded from Kate Bush. I hope you enjoy. Stick around to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. I lost my button. Angels by Robbie Williams. Before that, we were listening to Wuthering Heights by Kate Bush. You're listening to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. I am White Shadow. Today is the 22nd of July, and on this day in 1775, George Washington took command of the Continental Army. On this day in 1918, lightning killed 504 sheep in Utah's National Park. In 1933, on this day, the first solo flight around the world had ended successfully by Wiley Post after 7 days and 19 hours. This is something I mentioned in last week's show. I remember it well. In 1962, on this day, the first US Venus probe, Mariner 1, failed at liftoff. And in 1983, Dick Smith made his first solo helicopter flight around the world. In 1994, O.J. Simpson pleaded absolutely 100% not guilty of murder. And on this day in 1999, the Woodstock 99 Festival began in Griffiths Park in New York. It lasted until the 25th, and it was attended by 200,000 and eventually ended due to violence. Now, something I keep hearing a lot recently is issues about robots taking our jobs and making so many professional fields obsolete. But I've got a list of jobs here that some of you remember some of these jobs existed, but to others, you're about to learn a few things, because robots may be stealing jobs left, right, and centre nowadays. But plenty of professions have vanished over the years as society and technological evolution. There we go. Let's string a coherent sentence together. We can do this. Since society has been evolving and technology has been sort of progressing as well, there are so many jobs that have been wiped out over the last 100 years, and I've got a whole list of them here. I'm going to start off with a factory lecturer who was hired in cigar factories to read books and newspapers aloud to keep the workers entertained while doing their jobs. This is something that radio just kind of annihilated pretty sharpish. We have the knocker-upper who the knocker-upper who, back in the days when alarm clocks were too expensive and unreliable, they would do their rounds in the morning and bang on the front doors of factory workers to wake them up with a very, very heavy stick. The night soil collector had the very pleasurable job of removing human waste from people's privies. The profession was very, very popular throughout Europe, America, and Australia in the 19th century, and still exists in some places like Japan and India. But overall, that was kind of wiped out when we created a proper sewage system. The breaker had the job of separating impurities from coal by hand, and more often than not the job was often given to children. Because it was so dangerous and considered exploitation, it was finally stopped in the 1920s. Now, do you know the Muffin Man? Because in the 1920s, most people knew the Muffin Man. He is the one who'd go from house to house in the mornings at breakfast time, carrying a tray of freshly baked English muffins on his head. I struggle to carry my hair on my head, let alone a tray. The buggy whip maker. Now, this is kind of controversial to some people, but it's a perfect example of how technological evolution can wipe out an entire business sector. Because in the 1890s, not the 1980s, the 1890s, whip making for horse-drawn carriages was an absolutely thriving business, but it vanished pretty quickly once cars and bicycles came into play and became mainstream. We have the ice cutter. Now, the ice cutter was prominent before aircon was invented, and I'm very glad we have such beautiful aircon in here, because it could get roasty. The ice cutter. Let's start again. The ice cutter would harvest tons of ice during winter and stored them in hay-packed ice houses before distributing them into towns and cities during the heat of the summer. And this ice was delivered by the ice men and occasionally ice women, and it pretty much died out in the 1950s, but still exists on a small scale in some Amish communities in America, since they tend to shun electricity. And of course, a very classic one, the gas lamp lighter. Now, this is a fun one for me. Because during the 19th century, the street lamps were powered by gas, and the lamplighter's job was to go out and fire them up every evening. The gas lamps were replaced by electricity in the early 20th century. But I have learned recently that London apparently still has around 1,500 gas lamps and 5 part-time lamplighters. If you know more about this, please do tell me. Tweet into the studio at Insanity Radio, because this is something I wasn't aware of until I started doing some research for this show. I want to see more gas lamps. Or do I? It's a tricky one. It's a tricky one. Anyway, I'm going to throw on a few more tunes. I have the last one that I've uploaded for today's show coming up. I hope you enjoyed the ones I've uploaded so far. If you have any suggestions, tweet into the studio at Insanity Radio. I hope you this one like. Yes. Believe by Cher. Before that, we were listening to Lovin' You by Minnie Riperton. You're listening to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. I am White Shadow. Today is the 22nd of July, and it's going to be the 22nd of July all day today, so I might as well stop saying that. Now, on the 24th of July is 24/7 Samaritans Awareness Day. So if you're interested in getting involved and finding out more about the Samaritans, you can go visit the website samaritans.org for more information and see if there's anything you can do to get involved on the Samaritans 24/7 Awareness Day. Earlier in the show, I was talking about jobs that have been put to rest as a result of social and technological evolution, and I've got a few more here. I've got, believe it or not, occasionally I can speak. Yes, let's just dive straight back in there with the caddy butcher. This is a job that existed right up into the 1940s. The caddy butcher specialised in selling horse meat, which was always considered a cheap and undesirable alternative to beef and venison, and it's now, well, I'd say it's considered taboo, especially in the UK. The next job on the list is the stoker, who had the job of powering steam trains, steamships and sawmills by shoveling a lot of coal into crazy high temperatures. Until electric trains and ships came along during the 20th century and rendered the job obsolete completely. I think I remember my mum telling me a story that my granddad used to work in the coal mines many years ago, and it resulted in him having quite a few breathing problems. And of course, let's not forget the telegraph operators who sent and received messages through the electric telegraph, which was the fastest way to communicate over long distances until the telephone came along. Interesting side notes, telegraph operators had to be very fluent in Morse code. And of course, the telegram boy was employed to deliver telegrams which had to be sent or received at a post office or telegraph company like Western Union. This is a role that led right into the 1970s. And of course, something that I always consider potentially a quite fun job would be the pin setter. The pin setter had the role of working in a bowling alleys, resetting the pins and collecting the bowling balls right up until the 1940s, when the mechanical pin setters took the lead. Now, here's another fun one. This one, I apologise if you're eating lunch or something, but this one is the used teeth salesman, because for the most of the 20th century, access to dental treatment was very limited in Europe, and people couldn't afford to visit the dentist, so they resorted to buying second-hand false teeth when theirs had rotted away. The foundation of the NHS in 1948 put a pretty swift end to this role. Yeah, okay. I'm going to throw out one more. Sorry, my mind is drifting off onto other things right now. I've got so many things I wanted to share, and I'm probably going to forget all of them before the end of the show. The Rag and Bone Man. Now, I know some of you will remember this one because the Rag and Bone Man would roam the streets with his horse and cart, ringing the bell and collecting junk from the grateful residents. And that horse and cart kind of moved onto vans and trailers and things, but it's mostly died out in the 1980s when most of them kind of moved into the scrap metal trade, which was, at least at the time, I don't know about nowadays, but at the time was definitely a lot more lucrative for them. Do not forget, I'm going to find a few more notes here because I want to give a small reminder once again about Jade Thornton doing a Busk in London competition. It's taking place in various locations around London. If you want to drop her a vote, you can do so. You can vote once a day, every day for the whole of this week, and the winners are decided by the public vote and the public vote alone. Today she's going to be in Westfield, so if you go to buskinlondon.com/gigs/find, you'll see a list of all the participants, and Jade will be right there. Please do vote for her. I am going on and on and on about it because I really want you to vote for her. I really want Jade to win. I've already voted. I voted yesterday. I'm going to be voting today just as soon as it allows me to do it again. Please do check it out. buskinlondon.com. Do I want to throw on a few more tunes already? Why do I want to throw out a few more tunes already? This is not something that I had uploaded already. This has been on the system for quite some time, but I really have an overwhelming urge to play it. So I'm going to throw this on for you right now. Stick around to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. Dream On by Aerosmith. Before that, we were listening to Man in the Mirror by Michael Jackson, one of the classics, one of my favourites of all time. You're listening to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. I am White Shadow. And earlier on, I mentioned the National 24/7 Samaritans Awareness Day. There's also a few more National Awareness Days and weeks and months and things coming up throughout the end of this month. First off, we have the National Tequila Day 2018, which is happening on the 24th of July. National Tequila Day. On the 27th of July, we have the National Fishing Month. I know a few people who might be very interested in that. I will make sure they get the message. 27th of July will be the start of the National Fishing Month. On the 28th of July this year, we have World Hepatitis Day, which will be raising awareness about the disease. On the 29th of July, we have International Tiger Day. There's been quite a lot of information in the news recently about tigers as an endangered species, so it's always nice to find out some more information and find out what you can do to support it and help to repopulate the world with all these beautiful, beautiful creatures. Also, bear with me. Very professional. We have on the 30th of July, we have International Friendship Day. This is something I really want to find out more about. I want to do some more research on this. Maybe next week I'll share some more information about International Friendship Day. But yeah, that's literally all I can tell you about it right now. July the 30th is International Friendship Day. So maybe you could hop online, find out more about that, and maybe you could educate me. Maybe you could come onto the show next week here at Insanity Radio and share what you know about it, what you've learned with me. Educate me on a few things. That would be absolutely, totally amazing. Speaking of things that are absolutely, totally amazing, on the 3rd of August, I'm going to share this with you. On the 3rd of August, I am going to be celebrating my 35th birthday. That's for those of you who are not very good at counting, that's halfway to 70. I have got some reserved space at the Pack Horse. There is in Egham Hill, the Pack Horse. There's going to be some live entertainment from somebody you may have heard of before in the form of the legendary Jade Thornton. She's going to be performing live at the Pack Horse for my birthday bash on the 3rd of August, kicking off from 7 p.m. It's an open invitation. You're all welcome to come. I hope I will see you there. Of course, a lot of people that's had my first... There's a lot of people around here that have just graduated from the university, a lot of people that are in the process of moving into new pastures and going on global tours and moving house and still unpacking and packing and moving and shifting. So there's a lot of people I know who will not be there, but they will be in spirit. And Spirit, I'll try not to drink you. I'm just going to go ahead and throw on a few more tunes. Stick around to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM.
Party girls, don't get hurt, can't feel anything. When will I learn?
Burning Down the House by Talking Heads. Before that, we had Chandelier by Sia. So, you're listening to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. I am White Shadow, and throughout the show I've been sharing some jobs that have been made obsolete by the growth of just society in general and technological advances and evolution. And I've got a few more here that I want to share with you. One of which is the switchboard operator. I'm pretty sure you've all at some point or another watched this is my only recollection of it was watching the old-fashioned movies from like the 50s and 60s, I think, when you'd pick up the phone, you'd be put through to an operator who you then told the digits of the person you wanted to call, and she would put the right jack into the right hole to connect your line to theirs. That's something that was kind of wiped out it evolved quite a bit throughout the 60s, I think, and it was eventually sort of wiped out in the 80s once it was pretty much fully automated by modern technology. Moving on, we have, of course, the elevator operator, or the lift attendant, as it's known over here in the UK more often than not. This was back in the days when elevators were not automated by technology as well. Every single lift pretty much had to be operated or attended by somebody who knew how to use it. And more often than not, nowadays, it tends to be used only in high-end upper-class establishments, mostly for the sake of having someone to attend to the client's needs. But I think that, I can't remember, I'm trying to find out, I'm trying to see right here, right now, I'm getting too old for this, halfway to 70. Yes, 1930s, from the 1930s onwards, elevators started becoming more automated, and it just started sort of declining. That's the word, declining. I can speak England. This is impressive. Moving on, we have the projectionist, which is something that I actually kind of miss this in a way, because I do remember a time when projectionists were still being used in cinemas before the digital kind of evolution stepped in. The movie theatre was just completely dominated by people who had to manually put the reels into the projector to project the screen, to project the movie onto the screen for you. And that started, I can't even remember when that stopped happening. The problem is, when digital technology started coming out, it took a long time before it started getting implemented into all of the different devices. And I know some cinemas had the technology maybe a decade before others, so it was still around. It was still around in some places for a long time. But yeah, that's. I'm rambling now. This is me, White Shadow, rambling on a Sunday afternoon. So I'm just going to stop boring you all now. I'm going to throw on a few more songs. Let's go for a ramble for a few fields of gold, shall we? Stick around to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM, where the tunes are rocking a lot more than the vocals. The Dock of the Bay, or Sitting at the Dock of the Bay by Otis Redding. Before that, we were listening to Fields of Gold by Eva Cassidy. You're listening to Insanity Radio 103.2 FM. I am White Shadow. Today is the 22nd of July, and it is going to be the 22nd of July all day today. So I hope you're enjoying it. Now, so far in the show, I've been talking about the Beatles' first album released on this day in 1963. I've been speaking about NASA preparing to send the Parker Solar Probe towards the Sun somewhere around the 6th of August. I have been talking about what I believe would happen if Microsoft made cars. We've been talking about Girlguiding UK overhaul to reflect the diversity of girls and modern living in the 21st century. We've been talking about dairy milk reducing their sugar content by 30% next year, along with wine gums and jelly babies and other Maynard's products. Toblerone are bringing back their original traditionally shaped chocolate bar, albeit at just over £3 a bar. We've been talking about jobs that have been made obsolete as a result of social technological evolution. And of course, I may have mentioned once or twice that Jade Thornton is taking part in a Busk in London competition in London throughout this week. Another reminder, the website is buskinlondon.com/gigs/find. There you will see all of the participants and you will be able to vote for Jade. The winner of the competition is going to be decided by public vote. So please do pop on by and drop her a vote. You can vote once a day, every day for the entirety of this week. And Jade will be performing in different parts of London every day this week. So show us some support, show us some love. She'll also be performing live at the Pack Horse on the 3rd of August for my birthday bash, as I either celebrate or grumble about turning 35, officially halfway to 70. And yes, I will continue to say that I honestly don't feel a day past 12. But that's enough. I'm going to rock on out of here. I'm going to go see if I can figure out how to string coherent sentences together. I'm going to see if I can come back next week and shine a lot more than I've been shining today. I'm going to cut this show short, so I'm going to leave you with, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages, let's get ready to rumble.